This is The Strange Recital, a podcast about fiction which questions the nature of reality.
Listen to this. He said this as he started the tape machine. We stood, facing the monitors that were on a shelf above the mixing board, a window view of the darkened live room beyond. He adjusted the levels quickly and stepped back. What sounded like a wind chime filled the room, a wind chime on a farmhouse porch, restless in a shifting tempest. I could feel a change in barometric pressure and a subtle increase in humidity as the sound floated on the breeze. The feeling was vast and lonely, as though isolated on an American prairie. There was tension and foreboding. There was barely any sound, yet all my senses were heightened. I imagined that there were no people around. Something unknown and powerful was out there in the surrounding fields. I was transported and looked to the sky, anticipating that first stinging drop of open country rain upon my brow. My spine went cold as the chime went silent for a moment and resumed with a more vigorous meter. "This is my breakthrough recording," he said, snapping me back into the room. I described what I had heard, or imagined that I had heard, and he was delighted with my description. Rain, he said, was in the forecast. The barometer was indeed falling, and what you are hearing, or sensing, is the leaves turning upward in response to humidity. This is a recording of a single plant that I brought into the studio. I set up an array of all types of microphones and listening devices. And, he continued, I almost didn't roll the tape because of the distant thunder. He was clearly in his own head as he drew down the sliders and stopped the tape machine. Not everyone can hear it, he said over his shoulder as he rummaged through a cabinet and pulled out a handful of cables. Come on, I want to show you what's happening in the greenhouse. We made our way out of the barn that housed the studio. The low lighting and the feeling of rain on the recording set me up for a few moments of adjustment as we stepped out into the sunshine. The sun hit me like a white-hot skillet. I went to the ground in a heap. "This whole place is vibrating, man. This whole place is vibrating." Ronnie was running around, waving her arms in delight. Ronnie's band had just finished up a 32-date tour prior to booking the farm. They were still wound up from the road. They acted like caged animals. The studio couldn't hold them. They arrived with an album's worth of material to finish and lay down on tape. Songs written on tour. Songs about hotel rooms and long-distance romance. About longing and aircraft-grade aluminum. After a week in the country, they threw all those songs away. "This whole place is vibrating, man." The band would scatter into the woods in the morning and explore the stone walls, fields, and barns. They would return to the studio in the evening to write and share the sounds that the day had given them. A collection of natural materials was accumulating in the studio. Pine cones and nuts, feathers and bones, a few hollow logs were added to the drum kit. Some antique bells were hanging on a mic stand. The sound of a woodpecker made it into a drum fill. A few phrases of bird song could be heard in the keyboard parts. When the songs were ready, they recorded overnight during the full moon in a derelict barn down the road. We moved all the equipment out there and threw the doors open wide to the sounds of insects and peepers. We brought the band's collection of found objects to the sessions as well. Baskets of pine cones and arrangements of feathers, various nuts, crooked branches, and birds' nests. "Oh shit, are you all right?" He was standing over me, shielding me from the sun. "How long was I out?" Barely a minute," he said. "Do you remember when Ronnie's band came up here?" I asked, still lying on the ground. "Of course," he said as he helped me to my feet. "That's what this is all about. That's why I called you back up here. Found Objects is the best record we ever made. Possibly the best record ever made. It's magical. The fields and forests were singing along. You set up that barn perfectly for the sessions. You never said much, but you never let us delude ourselves into thinking that we were doing something great when we weren't." I put my sunglasses on and brushed some earth from my sleeve. He was on the verge. "Perfect," he said. "Bands always looked to you when they were recording. If you were bopping your head to the music, they would worry, but if they looked over and you were unconscious, they knew they were onto something." That overnight recording session in the barn was as transcendent as it gets. The band played the songs live, in order. 2 or 3 takes of each song. We didn't even play back except to check the tape. The result was an arc of the ambient sounds of the night. When Ronnie closed the record with her acoustic number, Dawn Breaking Everywhere, the birds were singing along, and the band was weeping as the sun crept across the chestnut floorboards. We recorded the sounds of frying bacon when Sarah cooked breakfast for us up at the house. The perfect bookends for the album. The bacon sizzling sounded like pops and scratches of a vinyl pressing. We doubled the vocals and did a little cleanup, but not much. Even the sound of a crate of pine cones vibrating off the bass cabinet made the final cut. In fact, he said, interrupting my reminiscence, I think there are some sounds of you snoring on that record. Come on, you have to see this. The greenhouse was quite an operation. Steel and glass buildings had replaced the Quonset hut where Sarah had grown peppers, tomatoes, and herbs for the kitchen, and he had grown some weed for the studio. Now it was commercial in scale. There were some benches filled with pots on a rail system. The long, narrow building we went into had a large arching bandshell at the end of the rails. I know he built it, too. It was beautifully constructed using strips of cherry harvested and sawn on the property, finished like furniture. In the bandshell was a tiered stage with plants in various sized clay pots, arranged much as an orchestra might be, each variety of plant grouped together by leaf size or flower. There were some small trees in the back. The bandshell was set up for recording. Where I expected to find microphones, there were ears of flint corn, stripped of their protective leaves and skewered vertically on stiff copper wire. Eagle feathers were mounted on small wooden cups. Wires led back to a seismograph type of device, combined with a phonograph cylinder, a needle cutting into wax, rotated by a silent electric motor. There were woodpecker feathers strung all around. Frequencies, he said as he wired up a giant pine cone. A lot of this stuff is from those sessions we did. It's like they're tinned for soldering, ready to receive, already trained. He looked around and checked a couple of connections, repositioned a bird's nest, and gave some words of encouragement to a hydrangea. I started working out here between gigs and listening to music. I built a great PA system out here for myself. The seedlings seemed to like it. Everything appeared to grow faster and hardier. Found Objects was in the queue, and it elicited some type of excitement among the plants. I played it on a loop, and it was like dusk and dawn occurring every 42 minutes. I think, he said, pausing, they are learning the songs. There was an air-conditioned shed about 50 feet downstage of the bandshell that housed the recording equipment. It was also on rails and had flexible hoses and strain relief for the cables. Inside, along with the recording console and tape machines, was an array of custom-built filtering and processing devices. There were studio monitors and 17 small speakers that appeared to be constructed of thinly sliced vegetables. "Roll the tape, it's all queued up," he shouted, his voice booming in the booth. "And there's a video camera outside next to the control room. Press record, it's all set to go. Yeah, that's it, on the side there." Through the window in the booth, I watched as a large vine unfurled and wrapped around his shoulder, like a teenage boy yawning and putting his arm around his date at the movies. Another vine snaked its way over to him and gave him a pat on the back before withdrawing into the shadows. "I didn't even plant these things," he said. "I steamed all the soil, but rodents and birds get in. Nature will find a way. Everything's accelerating in here. It's fantastic. They give the orchestra some mobility." The vines moved quickly and silently like serpents. This is the first run with all the new capturing devices. I've recorded a standard track using conventional techniques and microphones, but all I've gotten so far is a recording of me padding around and the sound of my hands contacting the leaves. "Still rolling," I said. He sprang into action like Sir Simon Rattle busting loose from his podium and touching every instrument himself. It was comical seeing him move about the stage, his arms waving like a madman attempting to capture the attention of an innocent on the street. He ran back and forth, up and down, touching each section, conducting with contact, and there was sound and energy coming from the organic ensemble in the bandshell. It wasn't a song in the Western sense, maybe, but it was melodic and the needles were jumping. He stepped down from the stage. "Keep rolling," he shouted. "I feel that we can shift the frequencies a bit. You know the way NASA shifts the color of deep space photography, shifting light to the visible spectrum for human consumption? I think we can do that here." I was beginning to think that might not be necessary. The capturing devices that he built were working wonders. "Still rolling," I said. "Vegetable dreams take two," he said with a laugh. The vines, which now seemed to be multiplying before my eyes, took to the stage. A large vine slithered its way into the control room with me. It exuded hot vegetable respiration, overwhelming, as though I'd stuck my face into an industrial pot of boiling asparagus soup. The door was now open to the hothouse. The air conditioning couldn't keep up. The vine draped over my shoulder and studied my every move. I tweaked knobs and sliders labeled as corn, pine cones, and feathers, familiarizing myself with the resulting effects as the vines danced about the stage conducting the plant orchestra. They moved smoothly and effortlessly, more efficiently than my man running around the bandshell. They were indeed learning the songs. I could see and hear his vision coming together. The plants were adding flourishes and techniques he hadn't shown them, their understanding and participation increasing exponentially. The serpent vine behind me reached over and adjusted a slider labeled bird's nest with a sticky tendril. Totally right. That piece came to a close, and the vines withdrew from the stage. The greenhouse was crackling with energy and excitement. What is next? "Vegetable dreams take three," he said. Now he did something I hadn't expected. He picked up pruning shears and jumped back onto the stage and proceeded to clip away at leaves and stems in a time signature known only to him. I could feel a change in the room, the type of cool feeling one gets as you step into a sacred site or ancient burial ground. A cloud covered the sun. The vine twisted its way up a leg of the tripod and switched off the camera with a finger-like stab of the correct button. Another vine made it over to the tape machine to stop the recording, but not before the sounds of a horrible pruning of human limbs was committed to tape. I awoke in darkness with the bloodied tools in my hands. A refrain on a loop. "This whole place is vibrating, man. This whole place is vibrating." A wind chime on a farmhouse porch. Bird song, summoning the dawn.
That was Found Objects, written and read by John Montgomery.
Hi, John. Welcome back to the Strange Recital. Your 7th time here.
It feels a bit like déjà vu, or a case of synchronicity. This story of yours taking place in a recording studio and you coming here. I hope it doesn't end the same way. But welcome back. It's been a while.
Thanks, I'm happy to be here. I don't get out much.
I see that you brought a few plants to the studio this morning.
Yes, Tom suggested I set up a little demonstration, so I brought a few pots from the lab.
You have a lab?
Well, the kitchen in my apartment on Avenue D. The plants are on the counter by the window. I spend a lot of time alone, and I'm talking to my plants. Recently, they've started talking back. Brent, you're a gardener. Don't you talk to your plants?
No.
Anyway, I quickly realized that other people can't communicate with plants or hear them the way I can, so I've been working on ways to record and amplify what's happening in those leaves and stems.
So this experimentation served as inspiration for your story?
Yes, but there's another story there as well.
I'm sure there is.
Once I developed this communication, there's no longer a quiet walk in the woods. It's constant noise. Maple trees are the worst. Blah, blah, blah.
Well, maybe we could set up your demonstration.
I'm afraid it's going to be a complete disaster. I'm pretty sure not going to get any sound out of them today.
Why not?
Well, for one thing, a couple of key players were lost on the way here.
What do you mean, lost?
Well, I loaded a few pots and a couple of these unruly vines that I have into the car. I mean, I hate to put human emotion on them, but we've spent a lot of time together, and I think they were excited to go on a road trip. Well, everything was cool until we got on the thruway. The speed made them crazy, and the vines started reaching all around the car, playing with the radio, pushing every button, turning every knob, opening and closing the windows. It was getting totally out of control. And I'm yelling like my dad, "Don't make me turn this car around." It was chaos, I'm trying to drive and they're fucking around. Then they open the sunroof and they extend out into the wind and they're waving around and they're slapping onto the windshield. I swear they're growing longer by the minute. Now it's like every other potted plant is clamoring to experience this sunroof thing. I just have them in a couple boxes in the back seat. So one of the vines comes back inside the car, curls around my favorite little pot, grabs it, and holds it out the sunroof. Now, I'm doing about 80, and this plant gets ripped right out of the grasp. I look in the rearview mirror, and there's this plant tumbling and smashing down the highway, and the plants are all screaming. And it was great fun for the vines, and they lose another one out the sunroof. I managed to get the roof closed, but the vines are really wound up, and the plants are going nuts. They're all over the interior of the car, and I'm swatting them away. Now there's one wrapping itself around my foot and pressing the accelerator. 100, 120, 125. At 130, the car gets really squirrely, like it's about to leave the ground. I pull my knife out of my boot and I cut the thing off. It was liquid-filled and horrible. I was able to get my foot free and bring the vehicle under control, but it was total chaos. Everyone was screaming, including me. So anyway, I think they're all traumatized and pissed off at me. I'm not sure we'll get a performance. I'm getting the silent treatment.
Well, let's set up what you have.
Okay. Each pot has 2 XLR ports, A and B, one for the sounds above the soil and one for below. I brought a 20-foot snake. I think Brent jumped a little just now. An audio snake.
I knew that.
Don't worry. I locked the vines in the car. We won't have to contend with them.
Good.
So yeah, each pot's like a microphone. I think I better go check on my car.
Okay. Well, let me plug in these cables and we'll see what this is all about.
Well, it should be interesting if it works.
Yeah, if it's not just some kind of Triffid fantasy. Wow. Who would have thought that plants make music? And with a beat, too.
Are you sure that's the plants? It sounds like Bill Laswell to me.
Yeah, you're right. I connected the wrong cable. Let's try again. And how long have I been doing this?
Amazing.
Yeah, it sounds a bit like a Geiger counter. It's uncanny.
I think plants make that clicking sound when they're stressed. He probably hasn't been watering them.
Well, that's it. The vines stole my car. I knew it. They were watching my every move. How's that funny?
You've been listening to The Strange Recital on the web at thestrangerecital.com. The music on this episode was Flowers in the Desert by XJ5000 from their record, The James Masons. This is episode 25101.